Has been a lot of conversations, commentary, debate around the rupee. It is also a political debate that is happening that should the RBI, should the government do anything to stop the rupee from sliding? There are experts on one side who say that rupee is falling. It's a national thing. There are a lot of geopolitical tensions that is happening. So rupee falling is a very natural thing. The government should not be doing much, should not be depleting its resources, its forex reserves to catch the rupee. On the other side, there are a lot of commentaries which say, you know what, rupee depreciating shows that the economy is not strong. It brings in inflation in our country. So the government, the RBI should do something to catch this slide. The rupee should be more stable. Now, in this video, I'm going to share a point of view of mine, which is going to be slightly more nuanced. I'll first talk to you, explain to you why does the rupee slide? Historically, what has been rupee's position, the argument or the debate for intervention and against intervention. I'll discuss all of those. And then at the end, I'm going to give you my point of view. But before that, let's set the context. So let me share my slides and then we are going to talk in details about what should the RBI be doing to catch this slide in rupee. So to start with, this is what I have for you. Now, I'll first talk of the context, then I'll be talking about the reasons why the rupee is falling, and then I'll be talking of the case for intervention, the case against intervention, and then what are RBI's toolkits, right? What are things that RBI can do or have been doing in the past, and then finally my opinion, my verdict on what the RBI should be doing. And it is going to be more nuanced. It's not about this is what they should do or this is what they should not do. It's going to be more nuanced. So let's start. If you look at this graph, what does this tell you? It tells you rupees position or depreciation over the years. In 2011, if you see, rupee was somewhere in the 40s. Over the years, it has been depreciating, and now this is where we find it. It is in the 90s, in the mid 90s. Okay, so and in fact, in May 2026, it was an all-time high of 96.84 rupees per dollar. Okay, so this is the context, right, to start with. Now the question is, why is the rupee falling, right? What are the reasons for it? Now I have outlined 6 important reasons why the rupee is falling. To start with, the crude oil shock. Now you know that in Feb 2026, the Iran-US conflict started. Now that has spiked global oil prices. Now India imports 85% of its crude imports. I mean, it is around 85% of its crude is imported, which directly widens our current account deficit. Now, what is current account deficit or CAD? It is the difference in imports minus exports. So if the import is higher than the exports, then CAD is positive. And we do not want our CAD to widen. We want our exports to be more than the imports gradually. And that's the reason you see all this buzz around Atmanirbhar Bharat, making in India and then exporting to the world, because we want the exports to be more than the imports. But unfortunately, today the imports are much more than the exports. The next reason why the rupee is falling is FPI outflow. So foreign portfolio investors have pulled out almost 17 to 18 billion dollars from Indian equities in 2026. Now, this obviously puts a lot of pressure on the rupee, because when FPIs pull out money, they pull out dollars because they take the dollars and invest somewhere else. So that obviously increases the demand of dollar and decreases the demand of rupee. So there's a lot of pressure on the rupee. So that further leads to sliding of the rupee. Then the third one is widening trade deficit. Now, as I told you, that our imports are really growing and our exports are not growing as fast. So if you look into it, our imports grew 7.6% while exports grew just 0.9%. Okay, and this I'm talking about in FY26 and FY 2025. That's the comparison. The fourth reason is interest rate gap, right? Now, RBI's dovish pivot, and it did an repo rate cut to 5.25% in December 2025. Now, what happened because of this? If the interest rates are higher, then obviously the FPIs, they say that we are going to get more interest on the money that we spend in the Indian market, so let's invest. Now, if you bring down the interest rate, again, the investors start thinking that, you know what, if the interest is lower, why should we keep our money invested in the Indian markets? Let us pull it out and put somewhere else, right? So that is another reason why the rupee has been falling. Another reason is US trade pressure. Now, US tariff threats on Indian goods, we would know this. This has created a lot of export uncertainty, and it has dampened capital inflows. Now, this also has added to the rupee sliding. And then finally, the broader emerging market weakness. More emerging market currencies are under pressure. It's not just the rupee. However, the rupee has not been really performing better than many of the emerging market economies. So that is also a macroeconomic reason why the rupee has been falling. So these are the top 6 reasons which has led to the rupee falling. Now, let me talk to you about the case for intervention, the argument that why should the RBI defend the rupee. So what are the primary reasons behind it? The first one obviously is imported inflation. Now, since we import around 85% of our crude oil, which essentially means $200 billion of crude oil annually. Now, if the rupee keeps on falling, that import bill keeps on ballooning. As a result, we are importing inflation, right? Second, it prevents panic and speculation. Now, if you have an unchecked slide, what it does is currency speculators, they come in and they amplify the downside moves. So RBI intervention signals that, see, there is institutional resolve. You cannot just come and speculate and put downward pressures on our currency. We are there to check it, right? So it prevents panic and speculation. The third one is it protects external debt burden. Now, if you know, India's external debt was around $700 billion plus in FY 2026. Now, obviously, we pay most of the debt in dollars. Now, if the rupee slides and the dollar gets stronger, obviously, our debt burden also keeps on increasing. Then you have adequate reserve provide firepower. Now, India's Forex reserves stood at around $691 billion. That's by March 2021. Now, this is roughly covering around 11 months of imports. So if the Forex reserve depletes further, our cushion also goes away, right? So that is another problem. And then finally, the preserve the middle class purchasing power. As we have talked about, that if the inflation rises, it really depletes the middle class's purchasing power. So unless we import less, unless we become more self-sufficient, this imported inflation is going to be a problem because it's going to deplete the purchasing power of the middle class. So there's a case that that the RBI should be defending the rupee. Now, these are the top 5 reasons why there are experts who ask that the RBI should be defending the rupee. Now, let's look at the cases against intervention. There are many experts who say that RBI should not be intervening. Now, what are those reasons? Number one, boost export competitiveness. Now, we have a lot of exporters, right, who export out of the country and they get paid in dollars. Now, for the exporters, it's a great thing if the rupee depreciates, because that means the dollar is getting stronger. So every dollar that you now earn, when you convert to rupee, you earn more, right? So that's the reason it boosts export competitiveness. Second reason is market correction and not crisis. Now, many experts argue that the rupee sliding is really a reflection of some of the macro fundamentals like higher CAT, current account deficit, XPIs exiting, rate differentials. So rather than attempting to to check the slide in rupee, and which is a short-term move, the government and the RBI should be thinking of more long-term moves. Solve the problem of CAD. Don't allow it to widen, make it negative. FPIs exits. Don't allow the FPI exit. I mean, make it more attractive for the FPIs to invest in the Indian markets and keep being invested in the Indian markets, right? Those are the things which are more long-term. That is going to really solve the problem and not the short-term fixes. Then the third reason is reserve burn has limits. Now, RBI has already spent since February 2026 $30 billion just defending the rupee, which essentially made our reserves fall from $720 billion to $691 billion. So you cannot keep on using your forex reserves to catch the slide in rupee. So that is not a sustainable way to do it. So why are you investing, or why are you wasting your forex reserves to do this? And that's the reason many commentators or experts say, don't let your forex reserve deplete this way. This is going to rather put our country in much more peril. Then the next one is inflation impact is manageable. So what many experts say that, see, right now, yeah, for a 5% rupee depreciation, it just adds to around 15 to 25 basis points to CPI. That's what Kotak Mutual Fund Research says. So the the rate of inflation in a country is still manageable right now. It has not gone to higher single digits or even double digits. So don't don't do anything to catch this slide in rupee thinking of inflation, because the inflation is still manageable. And then finally, this, if you take those measures to catch the slide in rupee, you stifle growth ambition. Because see, if you see, aggressive rupee defense keeps our monetary policy very tight and it constrains liquidity. And we in India, we need to grow at 7% plus growth for job creation, right? And so if you do rigid currency management, this will simply act as a drag on RBI's ability to support growth. So these are the top 5 reasons why many experts argue that the RBI should not do much to catch this slide in rupee. Okay, that's the argument. Now, quickly, who benefits and who suffers when the rupee depreciates? So the winners obviously understand, the exporters, right? Be it the IT exporter, the pharma, the textile, the remittances, the tourism sector. These are the winners. The losers, obviously, the importers, right? All the oil importers, fertilizers, electronics, right? Students studying abroad, common households. They are the losers. Now, historically, what has the RBI done, or what are the tools in RBI's hand to manage the currency fluctuation? So the first thing is dollar selling via state bank. So RBI usually what it does is it sells US dollars through state-run banks in the spot forex market. Now, this is the most direct intervention tool that RBI has been using. The next one is Forex swaps. What it does is, rather than using the Forex reserves, what it does is RBI swaps, it injects rupee liquidity while acquiring dollars for reserves, right? So it swaps rather than using the Forex reserves, right? So that's another thing. The third is repo rate and liquidity. Now, obviously, as I already told you, that if you decrease the repo rate, it becomes unattractive for FPIs to keep invested in the Indian markets, right? So bringing the repo rate or increasing it is also another tool to ensure liquidity in the market to manage currency. And then finally, FPIs and NRIs bond incentive, right? So sometimes RBI eases deposit norms for NRIs or FPI. So as I'm recording this, there's a news that has come that the government has now allowed the FPIs tax exemption from the interest that will be earned on government securities. So this will make it attractive for FPIs to invest in the government securities, because the interest that they are going to earn is going to be tax exempted. Okay, so these are the interventions that RBI historically has been carrying out to manage currency either way. Now, this is my final verdict. What should the RBI really be doing? And if you see, at 95 rupees per dollar, there's no doubt that the rupee is under genuine structural pressure, right? Our oil import dependency, our widening trade deficit, the FPI outflow, these are all real concerns. But at the same time, $691 billion in reserves, right? Lower inflation, right? GDP, which is almost at 7%. India is really not in a very crisis mood per se. So the RBI's role is to smooth volatility. See, the idea is not that the RBI should be keeping a constant number or fixed rupee versus dollar. The idea that the rupee should not be too volatile or erratic. It should not be like, okay, 95 today, 101 tomorrow, then again 98. This should not happen, right? It should be a gradual decline. That's what has been happening, right? So my verdict is that RBI should be intervening if there are disorderly spikes, especially if it crosses 97, 98, then it becomes a problem. And it should intervene to also give strong signal of confidence to the FPIs. But RBI should not be intervening if to fix rupee at a very specific level permanently. That should not be done. It has to gradually depreciate. That's going to happen. Um, Next, it should resist export boosting moderate depreciation. I mean, the idea is not that allow the rupee to depreciate so that it becomes great for the exporters. I mean, again, our import bill is also very higher, right? So don't do those interventions. Don't burn the reserves defending the CAD weakness. It's the most structural reform is required to make the CAD negative. So the short-term measures should not be done, and obviously do not delay trade reforms. And this for the government, not just RBI, that use this as an opportunity, okay, and do not waste this opportunity really to use this opportunity to not delay trade reforms. And some complementary actions we have all talked about is very important. It's high time that we start diversifying our energy imports. It is very, very important. With such a heavy import bill, 85% crude oil import, this really is not going to be a sustainable long-term solution for us. The government obviously understands it, is trying, but it will take time. Boost now FTAs, foreign trade agreements are very, very important. There is another way that the government is trying. Promote INR settlement. Now, this is a very harder thing to do, but wherever possible, promote INR settlement so that we do not need dollar to settle our trade. Attract long-term investment, not just FPI inflows. Make India, the ease of doing business has to be much, much more streamlined. Okay. And finally, make it attractive for FIIs to really invest in the Indian markets, because ultimately when FIIs come, they bring in dollars. So that takes away a lot of the pressure from the rupee. Okay. So that is my verdict on what the RBI should be doing in managing the currency, managing the rupee dollar equation. Okay, so this is what I had. I hope you got a good sense of what it means, why the rupee is falling, what are the debates on the two sides, and what should the RBI be doing. I will be back again with another very informative video. Thank you for watching. Please do like this video if this was genuinely helpful, and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you again.